Welcome to Thoughts Off the Stem. Thank you for joining the sesh with me, Justin Barone. I hope you're having a good day, good week, good month, good year. I hope life's being good to you is what I'm trying to say. You ever wondered how long weed stays in your system? I've had a lot of these conversations with people because a lot of places, at least before things were legal, drug tested, and a lot of people try to sort of beat the system, right? And there's different methods, there's different ways. Some people use, I forget what it's called, but it's like a fake dick, and it holds like fresh pee, and then you go in and it looks like you're peeing, but it's a fake dick. People used to do that all the time. They used to get other people to take the test for them. They would go online and you could get like the supposed mix of like herbs that would help clear out your system. They used to say that cranberry juice, if you drink liters of cranberry juice, it flushes out your system as well. I'm here to tell you, none of that stuff works, dude. Some people might have had experience at like beneficial experiences from that, but it's not really that. It's really how your body deals with marijuana. So the first thing that you have to understand about weed is that it is fat soluble. So the more body fat you have, the longer it will potentially stay in your system. Okay, so for a guy like me, who's right now 250 pounds with a big fat belly like Santa Claus, weed's going to stay in my system for quite a while. Okay, it depends on how much you actually smoke, like how frequently, how long you've actually been using weed as well. All those things play a factor in it. And I'll tell you a little story. I'll tell you a story about a time where I was drug tested because I had started a new job. Now, the thing is I've always been very open about my marijuana use. So any employer that I've had, I don't really hide it. Like, I don't just like go out and be like, hey, I smoke weed. I mean, now it's not such a big deal, I think, but like back in the day, even like 10, 15 years ago, it was kind of a big deal. So people would, if you told them that, they would worry about it. But I remember one time I got hired at this company where I was going to drive heavy equipment, and they did drug testing because obviously they don't want people driving $500,000 pieces of equipment high as balls, right? I understand that. You don't really want to take a front end loader through a cement wall and all of a sudden have no side of a building, because that's very easy to do. So when I first got hired on, I think it was within the first like 2 months or so, they set me up with a drug test. So you have to go down to this like off-site facility, you pee in a cup, they analyze the pee, and it tells them whether or not you have THC in your system. Now, like I said, when I got hired, the guy that hired me, he knew that I smoked weed because I talked about it frequently. I was hired from another job. So he met me at another job. He liked what I did, asked me to come to him. So we worked together for a bit as equals before I worked for him. And we talked about weed constantly, or he was around me and my buddies talking about weed. So he knew that I smoked weed. Tells me I have to take a drug test. Generally, you take a couple weeks off, the drug test won't show that you have weed and THC in your system. Okay? This is also a flaw with like driving under the influence, and we'll get there in a second. But he sets me up with this drug test. So this one day I have to go down. I go do the test. I fail because I have THC in my system. And I figured, I took a couple days off, so it really shouldn't show. But the thing is that THC can stay in your system because it's fat soluble. So it molecularly, it attaches to like fat cells and stays in there. And if you have to pee in a cup, it will read that there's THC in your system. You may not have smoked it, that day. You could have smoked it like 2-3 days before that, and it will still show up as if you have it. And then people were assuming that you were still high, which is not really the case. And it's kind of unfortunate because there's a chance that on a Friday night, you could smoke a joint and then come to work on Monday, get drug tested, and it'll still show that there was THC in your system. Also, if you're in a room, like let's say you don't smoke weed, but you're hanging out with guys that do smoke weed, so you're in a room, you're in a room, they're smoking weed around you, that secondhand smoke will get into your system, and even if you don't get high, although you probably will get high, because like secondhand high is a real thing, okay? it'll still register. And then you can have, you can have issues. You can have issues based on that because your system has absorbed the smoke, and then the THC will show even though you don't smoke weed at all. And in this instance, I failed the drug test. I get back. I think like a day or two later, he comes up to me. He's like, "Hey man, you failed the drug test. What the fuck?" And I got a phone call after that saying, "Oh, we got a positive for THC in your system." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I smoke weed. Like I've let you guys know that I smoke weed. So like, it's weird that you're surprised by this to me." So they said, "Oh, well, we'd like to reschedule the drug test." I think I might have said something like, "Oh, I was at a party and I smoked a joint on the weekend," or something. I probably downplayed it quite a bit. And, my boss was like, "Dude, what are you doing? Just tell them it was a false positive. Because if you tell them it's a false positive, then they won't bother testing you again, and you move on. But because you said you smoked weed on the weekend, now you have to go take the drug test again." He's like, "And this time you have to pass or I have to fire you." And I was like, okay. So I did all the things that I described at the beginning of this. Like I ordered I ordered this concoction of what is it, like supplement pills that are, that were all natural that you could take, and you're supposed to take them in like a specific order so that your system, breaks them down in the specific order so that your kidneys process it, and then like your liver processes it, and then it's supposed to be like this flush for your system where THC is just like pushed out of it. Anyway, that wasn't the case. I used that stuff. I don't think it really did anything. And then, of course, me being a stupid young kid, like stoner, I thought I've taken like 3 or 4 days off, and then I smoked I think I took a week off, and then I smoked the weekend before thinking, well, I've taken so much time off that it shouldn't stay in my system. And then I got to work on the Monday and I was like, oh, I got to take that drug test. And then I was freaking out because I was like, it'll definitely show because I smoked a couple days ago. I didn't even smoke that much, but I just, didn't want the hassle. So the whole day, I think I had to take the test at like 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock in the morning, like 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. And I bought 3 or 4 1.5 liter bottles of water just to be on the safe side. Things that played in my favor were this. It was the summer. The environment I worked in was very hot. Like there was no air conditioning, and there was a lot of physical activity. So I was constantly sweating. I made sure that morning I did a whole bunch of stuff that was physical so that I sweat out any of the potential THC. That was my thought. And then I just, every few minutes or so, I would chug half these bottles of water. So I was getting liters and liters of water into me in a short amount of time. And then the drive was from my town to a different town. So it was about a half hour, 40-minute drive. And the whole drive, I'm just chugging these water bottles. I think I stopped twice to pick up 2 more 1.5 liter water bottles so that I could flush my system out. And so I had to pee when I got there, right? So I drank all this stuff. I get to the testing place, and the way that it works is you pee in a cup, and then there's a line on the cup that, for however it does it, it registers whether or not you have THC. And that line, if it shows up, I think it was if it showed up, you had THC or no whatever. I forget how it worked, but there was a line on there that was an indicator of whether or not you passed. Okay. So I get in there, I take a leak, I pee in the cup. The lady goes, "Oh man, this is very clear," because they want the stuff in the pee. They want the yellow pee, right? So she's like, "This is very clear." And I was like, "Well, look here. I work in a controlled environment. It's 40 degrees. If it's 20 degrees outside, it's 40 to 45 degrees inside. We're mandated to have to drink water every 20 minutes. So I've been, shoveling and doing all this physical labor all morning. And I've just been drinking to stay hydrated." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And she accepted that as an answer. Really, what I was trying to do was flush out all the pee so that I was basically just peeing water so that I could pass this drug test, right? So I go back, I finish, I do my thing. She accepts my answer. I go back to work. I show up and they're doing some like loader cleaning outside. And my boss like, so what do you, how did you do? Do you think you passed? I was like, I definitely passed. Don't worry about it. He's like, are you sure? I go, yeah, no, it's fine. So it finally comes back and it says, yeah, no, he passed. He's fine. So whatever you do, if you're trying to pass a drug test, in my opinion, the best way to do that for THC, because realistically nowadays in Canada, I don't think they even test you for THC anymore. But in my opinion, your best bet is to just drink liters and liters of water all the way up to the test so that, you're peeing just very slightly yellow, but it should be like 98% water. That's how you beat a THC drug test. You don't take a bunch of supplements. You don't chug a bunch of cranberry juice. None of that shit's going to work. I've tried it. It didn't. It really didn't work. That's the best way to do it. Now, the problem is, like I said, that you can smoke weed on a Friday and still test positive on Monday because weed is fat soluble and it can stay in your system up to 90 days later, right? So if you want to be fully clean of any kind of THC contamination in a drug test, realistically, you should take 3 months off smoking weed. And that way, for sure, you're not gonna fail the test. The downside to that, or like the stupid thing with how THC works is that in that way is that if you take cocaine is in and out of your system. Like you could take it at 8 a.m., take a couple leaks and then, or a shit, okay, go do a drug test and it doesn't show at all. So it takes days for a substance that really doesn't cause you to be too whacked out unless you've taken way too much, versus a substance that like has you really fucked up, like cocaine. That stuff's in and out of your system so fast. So people can go, they could party all weekend, show up on Monday, have a drug test and have no issue whatsoever. At least I think so. I shouldn't say that for sure because I've never done cocaine, so I don't know, but that's what I've heard. The other downside to it is, again, you could smoke a joint on Friday. Let's say Sunday you get pulled over by the cops because you're speeding or whatever, and for whatever purpose they decide to drug test you. Well, it can still show as you have THC in your system, so you get a DUI now. And the way that they test for marijuana in someone's system, it may be a little more accurate now, but for the longest time it really wasn't. So you could potentially get serious traffic infractions based on having smoked weed on Tuesday and getting pulled over on Friday, or smoking on Friday, pulled over on Sunday, and you're not even high. But your body, the way that the chemical works with your body, the way that it works with your body is that it's stuck in there. It's trapped. It's like jailed in your body, in your fat cells. And the only way to get rid of it is time, right? Or trying to burn off, like if you work out a lot, there's a potential for you to be able to burn off the fat cells and then, have THC leave your body so that it doesn't register. But it's kind of a bullshit situation where if you get pulled over and, you haven't smoked that day, you can still register if you're a consistent user. And that's really kind of crappy for everybody, because if you smoke a joint, it's going to mess with your ability to drive for sure. I don't think it messes with it on the same level as alcohol or other drugs, but you definitely shouldn't drive under the influence of anything, I don't think. But it can also mean that when you do get pulled over in that situation, you can now register and you're not even doing anything wrong. Like you're not actually high. You're not feeling the effects of it. So I think that when things became legal, they were trying to come up with ways to test it, but the best way to test anything is blood, right? And I don't think that they could take blood on a roadside test. So I don't think it's a breathalyzer. Although, no, maybe it was. I think the first time they came out with the roadside test, I think it was a breathalyzer. But the way that a breathalyzer works for alcohol is it's like it registers parts per million of the alcohol on your breath, right? So it can register and sense how much like alcohol vapor is coming out of you. I don't know that it's that accurate for weed because it's smoke, right? So I don't know exactly how they test it now, but I think they were trying to come up with a bunch of different ways to do it. The best way to do it is take like a hair sample or a blood sample and then go that way. But if you're wondering how long it takes for weed to leave your system or how long it stays in your system in terms of how long it will register, it's like 90 up to 90 days. Again, depending. If you're an occasional user and you smoke like once a month, it may not be that long. It could be, considerably less, like a fraction, like 30 days. Some people, no matter how long they've smoked, if they don't smoke for 2 weeks or so, then they'll show clean. It's just the way weed works with everybody's system is different, and everybody, because there's such differences, everybody will have a different end result. But if you go with the idea that, it could be in my system up to 90 days later, it's just safer for you because, that way you know what to expect. But if you want to get rid of weed out of your system, just drink a ton of fucking water, dude. A ton. And yeah. However, know that if you do that and you have to take a drug test, if the pee is too pure, they'll question you for sure, As far as the effects of weed goes, like if you smoke weed, it depends. It's all dependent. Some people, like, I'll give you a good example. So I've been eating a lot of gummies lately because I did an episode not too long ago about how the government would cap out gummies at 10% per package. Well, now that in Canada they've started to release packages with like quite considerably higher milligrammage. So I bought a pack that had 100 milligrams, so 10 gummies at 10 milligrams, and because I've been slowly cutting back on smoking and I've had like taken days off in between getting high and stuff, I've noticed that my tolerance has gone down a bit. So I took like 20 milligrams and I was good. Like it was a good level. And then the next day or a couple days later, I took like 30 milligrams. Dude, 30 milligrams put me on the moon for like a couple hours. But gummies, anything edible, because it takes longer to process, will take like 30 minutes to 2 hours to longer to actually have the effects released, right? Then once those effects happen, because you've eaten it and it goes through your system in a different way than smoking, that effect can last a long time. So I'm finding that I am liking edibles more because they last longer. Like those 30 milligrams for like 4 hours, I was in the pocket of high that I like, I was really nice. I was really comfortable and I was enjoying it like back in the day. Whereas with the 20 milligrams, it was weird. It took a bit of time to hit. And then when it hit, it was like, it was light, but it was like offsetting. It could have been what I ate that day too, because all those things have an effect. But if you're eating edibles, you're looking at, like, I think about a minimum of 4 hours of high. If you smoke weed, it depends on how well the weed has been cultivated, right? So when you smoke weed, it could last like 45 minutes. It could last like 2 hours. You don't know. It could last longer than that if you have too much or if you have an adverse reaction to it. If you're smoking concentrates, same thing. It depends. But generally on concentrates, I find it's a few hours with like an hour of linger after the initial like push of smoking and push of the effect, right? But yeah, edibles last the longest, I think. That's just my opinion. Oils too. Oils last a long time. But I think that's mostly because they're edibles. And then like topicals and stuff you don't get high from, so you don't really have to worry about that. But I wonder if you're using a topical, if it absorbs into your system, right? I often wonder if it will register. Like, let's say you take, like I took, my hand was really killing me the other day. So I took a cream and I put it on my hand because it felt like I was having arthritis issues. Like, I'm getting old, dude. And so I rubbed that on my hand, and then I wondered to myself, like, that absorbs into the system. So I wonder if that would also register if you had to take like a piss test for work. I don't know, because topicals are a relatively new thing, but they won't get you high. You have to ingest it to get you high. And then you also have to, with like you could eat a concentrate, but it's not going to get you high if you eat it. You have to actually burn it because the combustion is what activates the THC and the effects. So yeah, so that's my take. That's my what do you call it? Like, that's my information for how long weed will stay in your system, how long the effects last. So for anybody that's new or anybody that's wondering, that's what you can expect if you start smoking weed, or if you're new to weed and you're trying to figure out, how it affects you. For those of you that already smoke weed and you have an understanding, I know I'll get a lot of comments or, things saying like, well, yeah, it doesn't affect me that way. I know it doesn't, but you have to understand that there's like, everybody's body is different. So if you need 600 milligrams of edibles to get high, that doesn't mean everybody else does. Stoners have this weird thing where they have this like competition of who needs to take more. I would prefer to take less because then I'm not spending as much money. Like, if I buy a package of 10 edibles, 10 gummies for like $15, I want that to last as long as possible. So if I can eat 2 of those and get the high that I'm looking for, that's 5 days of high, from $15. Like, that's excellent, because normally if you're buying $15 of dried flower, you're getting like a gram, maybe 2 at the most. That shit's not going to last you more than a couple days, because when you roll it or smoke it, if you're not smoking it in a bong and you're rolling it in a joint, then that thing, like, you're done 0.7 at a minimum of that weed, right? So you've got like 2 or 3 joints out of that. Whereas I have 5 days of high if I can get high off 20 milligrams, but 30 seemed to be the best amount for me. That's the way it worked. That's the way it worked out the best. And then you kind of have to figure it out by trying on your own and seeing what your body can handle. If you want 500 milligrams, you're 500 or 600 milligrams, you either are very used to using it and your tolerance is through the roof, or your body's just made up different and it reacts differently. And that's definitely the case, but you're an outlier, because most of the people that I've ever dealt with in terms of, needing X amount of milligrams to get high, the average is somewhere between 20 and 50 milligrams is plenty, for people that have, experience with using weed on a regular basis. Yeah. So if you were wondering how long weed takes to get out of your system, or how long weed lasts and how long, the effects last, there you go. And those are my thoughts off the stem for this week. Thanks for joining the sesh. I hope you come back next week with me, Justin Barone, on Thoughts Off the Stem. Don't forget to visit tots420.com. Yeah. Until next time, keep your lids low, baby.